My name is Andy Atkins Pogue, and I am a librarian at Casunas River College. I'm also leading our college's efforts for open educational resources and zero textbook costs. And I'm actually on release from the library to work on this project full time. So CRC has made a lot of progress in the last few years. And I am chair of our Affordable Educational Resources Committee. And this workshop came out of brainstorming within that committee. And I'm joined today and have co-presenters. Heather Hutchinson is also on that committee, and she is English faculty at CRC. And Julie Oliver is not on the committee, but she is using some open pedagogy and active learning techniques in her classroom, and she is a microbiology instructor here at CRC. Before we kind of get into things, I'm going to go over a few definitions. Open educational resources are resources that have an open license to it, and it can be something that looks like a textbook or homework or lab manuals, or there's lots of things that would be considered open educational resources. And the beauty about OER is that it gives faculty a lot of freedom to make adjustments. So often I will hear from faculty that are using a commercial textbook, and they'll say things to me like, well, I'm using this book, but there's definitely some problems with it. There are mistakes or there are issues with it. And some faculty might say that same thing about an OER, but they have the ability to then go in and change those things that they don't like, or remove them, or add, or do whatever they want to do with them. It's the open license that's most often used is called a Creative Commons license, and there are different iterations of a Creative Commons license, but the most open one is CC BY, which means it is copyrighted and you can use it if you give attribution to the original creator. And that CC license allows you to use it as is, or you can take things out, you can add things in, you can grab pieces from other OER and remix them into something of your own. And so that's why I encourage faculty to try to find OER that might work for their classes. So that's kind of talking about textbooks. But tonight we're talking about the idea of open pedagogy and creating and kind of crowdsourcing and getting your students to help you create material to help them be a more active learner within the classroom. In the literature, they'll often talk about this as disposable versus renewable assignments. And the idea of a disposable assignment is you give your student an assignment and they work really hard on it and they put lots of hours into it and do a lot of research, and then they turn it in, and then the instructor reads it and grades it, and that's it. And that doesn't really go anywhere from there. And so sometimes students might feel like, gosh, I put all this work into it and nobody really saw it. This one person got to read it. The idea behind a renewable assignment is that you are providing an opportunity for your students to be very active in the learning and creation process, and then sharing that with others. And in some cases, it might just be sharing within kind of a closed system within the class to help other students in the class learn. Or sometimes the open pedagogy comes when you ask permission from your students to put an open license on that material, and then you share it more widely. So kind of probably the easiest example for you to wrap your head around is there are lots of faculty who will create Wikipedia assignments where there's a process where you sign up for it through the Wikipedia Foundation, and you come up with a topic, and students will actively be working on it over the semester and researching and creating this page within Wikipedia that then is published and open and available for the world to see. And that can be a much more rich experience for a student when they see that all of this hard work is now out there for others to help others learn and to help them be more involved in the learning process. So that's the idea behind open pedagogy. Now I'm gonna turn it over to Heather because she has been actively doing this in some of her English courses for several years now. So I'm gonna let you take it away. Okay, take it away, Heather.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for being here. I know it's a crazy week. I have a final in the morning, so I know what we have going on. In English, this open pedagogy works really nicely because one of our student learning outcomes is research. And so it engages students in the research process. And so in all of my classes, they are doing some kind of adding to what we call the course anthology. And some of them are like, what is an anthology? Because we don't have an actual anthology for them to hold on to anymore. And so the separation is something that we can talk about and discuss what the anthology is. So I want to give some examples and really talk about like the advantages of this and the opportunities to find current things that I wouldn't know about. And so I'm going to do some screen sharing and show a few things. And I have for most of these some testimonials, and I'll talk about how the classes work. But anytime I'm trying to get someone to do OER, I will say, well, you should just get your students to do it for you, not to oversimplify it, but to really talk about the advantages of doing this and getting them involved. And I'm doing this to myself. 1 second here. Okay. So like I said, I have a few assignments. So we can see my screen, correct? Okay, good. So in all of my classes, I have what's called hunting and gathering. And I've been doing this for eons, probably since I started at CRC more than 20 years ago. And the idea is to have the students bring in a song or another piece of writing that they think shows in advanced comp the argument in action. In creative writing, it's an excellent piece of creative writing. And so the idea is for them to share a piece of writing. So here we have hunting and gathering, and the idea is really to have them share some kind of piece that they have written or that they have found. And the key is that if it's a tiny little snippet, then it becomes something they've written because they're sharing why we need to read it. And so it has a few options, and in face-to-face classes, they present it. In online classes, they reply. So it gets them talking about things. And so that's a pretty simple approach that helps me sometimes to find new pieces of writing. I also run the literary journal, so it helps me to find creative writing if they're sharing their own pieces of writing. So it has a lot of purposes. When I ask them to find pieces that are bigger, and that's in almost every class we do hunting and gathering. And so I give an example, and then they know what they need to be doing. And so here we have just some of the comments that students have said. Sometimes it's their favorite thing that they do all semester. Let's see the pop them. Okay, yeah, okay, I looked at it. So I think the assignment I enjoyed the most would have to be hunting and gathering. I enjoyed how much creativity we're able to have. Personally, I love music, and being able to share a song that meant a lot to me with others made me so happy. I wish we were able to have more assignments where we are able to express our passions. And that's some feedback that I receive a lot, especially in classes where they have to write up more formal essay for most of the time, and the interaction that they get with peers. So the longer assignments, so this one, what is missing, help to build our anthology. In the 8 modules that we have in our college composition and literature course, what they're doing is looking through what we have. The whole course is on the theme of identity, and what they're looking is to see what's already in there. And they not only propose a piece, so they have to find a piece that is available as a whole piece online, that it's accessible, and they need to provide the link and the full text so that I can embed it into Canvas, or that they can embed it into Canvas. And we'll talk about that more later. And then they need to write an essay proposing what it will either replace that's already in the anthology, or what it will complement some of the other pieces that are in there, and which module it fits in. So we have modules that are like on food and names and all kinds of things related to identity. And sometimes they go the whole extra mile in proposing a whole new module, and telling me other pieces that could go in there as well, which is really exciting. And a lot of the times, they will, of course, be sharing about their identity and finding pieces that they love from their background, which is wonderful. And other times they will be thinking about an area where they have a lot of interest. So one of the things that I don't have a lot in there, and there are a variety of reasons why, but are mental health related things. Even though we have a chapter, a module on struggles, we don't have a whole lot. So they'll find what they think we should read related to mental health, and of course, literature related to mental health. And so they've already done an essay on what is literature, and they're applying that definition and finding those things. So it's all kind of coming together with this being the capstone project. And they come up with incredible, current, interesting pieces that I wouldn't have thought of. And sometimes they dig out an old classic that they're like, I would like to read some more of the classics. But for the most part, they're finding very fascinating pieces, a lot of zines, some manga, some different things that typically aren't found in literature, which is expanding the definition and exciting. And so we have for you some of those testimonials as well. In that same class, I have, because I've also taught the children's lit class, we don't include children's lit in the regular course anthology, but I asked them to do some of that, and it gets us talking about the definition of literature a little bit more. So it's really getting to the breadth of what we're looking for, and you wouldn't believe how many children's stories are available in whole online. So they're able to find some things, and they talk about how these are the stories they learned from children and that they love and know by heart. And then we talk about the ways that literature can affect us, etc. So that it gets into a rich discussion as we're sharing some of these pieces. We also, though, will, instead of using a text to or a publisher to come up with questions on the text, they create the quiz questions as well. So right now they're taking a final that is all of their quiz questions that they've created based on the literature, and they've done in little teams. So they study together, they come up with the questions together, and they're probably taking the finals together right now, so that they're accountable for the types of questions, and I'm not just coming up with nitpicky questions on the readings, that they're coming up with what they think they could answer. And so that I'm not only getting them to find the readings, I'm getting them to build the questions based on the readings. And so what I have to do is, of course, make sure that the questions are good questions with good answers, but they're picking things they think they could answer at the end of the semester. And then in a class, they're also making extra credit questions. So if they're not in a class where they're working in groups, so if they're in a face-to-face class, they're also adding, so there's an extra credit quiz question 1 as well, so that if we're talking about not necessarily readings, but we're in a comp class and we're talking about what is the Tolman schema, they're able to do that. So we have some tools for you to have them find the readings and generate some of the homework and some of the discussions based on those readings. So I hope those are helpful tools for you and that they get you thinking about whatever discipline you're in. And I'm going to turn it over to Julie.
All right, thanks, Heather. So I, as Andy said, teach in the biology department. My focus is microbiology, but I also teach another course called Plagues, which is kind of a baby micro class. And it's a general ed class. It's what I like to think of as a citizen science class. I'm not concerned that they remember every single vocab word. I'm concerned that they remember concepts and know how to go out in the real world and get good science information and act on it. So I used to teach this class in person, solely in person, and in 2018 I converted it to a completely online class, asynchronous, and I didn't want to lose the great dialogues that we would have in person. So when I did that, I embedded a lot of things for student engagement in my online class, and they also do a lot of collecting of resources, which over the years I've taken great advantage of to find new things to use, like Heather said, and Andy both said, use it to your advantage, pull the resources they bring, and many of them are now in the class permanently. So I'm going to share my screen, and I first just want to show this fabulous place that Andy has created to share open pedagogy. When you go to sample assignments here, that's where you will get what I'm about to go through. So here's what Heather just went through, and here's what I'm going to walk you through. Looks a lot like what you just saw with Heather, all this information. I'm actually going to show you my Canvas course. So hopefully right now you're seeing my Canvas course. This is a page early on in the semester. Like I said, this is a general ed class, and I want them to be good citizen scientists. I want them to know where to find good information, not, as I would say in a face-to-face class, not mamashealth.com or some conspiracy theory website, but like good scientific information. So I present in the news. We constantly track the news all semester, and I target them on different topics. I share kind of the top 5 that I have. And then as you go down, I ask them if they have a link to share. Have they found something? And if they do, they just have to come up here to the edit button. And this is, I've got it in student view. So this is what the student would see. They just come to the edit button and they scroll down, and this is all explained in the directions here, and they add their link. So you can see this is, I just picked an old class, spring 2020, and I cut out their names. Their names are all in here, but they put their name, they put the link, and they give a brief blurb about what you could find there. So by having the students do this, and then they just hit save, and it becomes this place where if they find a really cool link for in the news, they can add it here. And then if I get a student who's stumped, can't find something, I'm gonna go back to that in the news page, use my links or use some of the links students have provided. And over the years, I've definitely pulled some of the links from here and started using them in other places. And truth be told, sometimes they don't put a good link in there. And then I'll let them know that, this is a little too verging on mamashealth.com for me. So, we'll have those kind of discussions about scholarly links and good peer review links or university links, and just what a good place to go is. That's one of my big things for them, is to be really literate. Gail, I see your hand.
Yeah, hi everybody. Do you remove those links if you find that they're not, you say, this is the reason, this is too close to Mama's, I'm going to take that link out. Do you remove the links?
I've done different things, to be totally frank. Sometimes I remove them, and sometimes I put an explanation of why this might not be a good link to use, because I think that can be educational too. So, and if I remove it, I definitely tell the person. So I've done both. Some of it depends on how outlandish the link is. If I just really don't want anybody going anywhere near that, or if it's a good link that I can make a lesson out of. So it's a mixed bag. And then, so that's one really easy thing where you can just generate some info that students pull for you. Another thing I do in this class is I have group projects. And the thought of a group project is terrifying for students when they're in an online class. So I start them out slow. So in week 5 or so, we have this module about protozoa, fungi, and helminths. And protozoa and helminths are really tend to be more tropical, exotic type things that people think about. But we have neglected parasitic infections that are problematic here in the US. So what I do is I introduce small groups. I assign them into the small groups. This is super low stakes and it's super fast. They have a week to do it and it's 10 points. And honestly, they get the 10 points if they make an attempt. I just want them to learn how to do online group work. Some of them have never done that before. It's becoming more common as we're post-COVID and moving forward, but back in the day, this was totally foreign. I also show them some of the tools in Canvas for group work, the group pages, and the different ways they can share docs. So this is kind of their exploratory week for testing the waters. And all of these pages are in that document that Andy has on the Open Pedagogy site. So you have all this, but I just thought seeing it here might be a little better. So we just start with small groups. I give them some background and I'm going to fly through this. You have it. And then Canvas guides, give them some of that. And this is a 2020 class, so that link is shot. But and then they are assigned one of the neglected parasitic infections, and they're given places to look for that. They have their own small group discussion with that, and they're used to discussions every week. We discuss every week in this class. And then they have their group content project, and it's super basic. They just learned about the chain of infection. I asked them what's going on globally in the US with this and anything else they find interesting and cool. And they create a page, a Canvas page. They create that page, they share the page, and then I actually take those pages and I post them. So once they've done it, then let's check out everyone's pages, and I post every team's page. And then they have and that's just FYI, fun, look at it. There's nothing tied to it. And what I tell them to do, they complete this lessons learned. And I ask them, by looking at other people's pages, did you get good ideas for your next group project of how to organize or how to lay things out? How did it work for you working in a group? So it's really reflective. It's just to get their feet in the water of group work. And I warn them, they have a big project coming up. So, practice, practice, practice. And then the semester goes on and on and on. And then about another 5 weeks in, they pick their teams and they do a large student project. They're going to create a teaching module for me, just like here's a module, just like I have my teaching module, they create their teaching module. So they pick a topic, they pick their teams. I go through what content, how to set up the pages. They have a midway check-in, then they turn them in. And when they're done, they look at everybody's module and they have a discussion on everybody's module. So these are the modules that they did in 2020. One group did Clostridium difficile, Lyme disease, plague, rabies, SARS. They picked their topic, and I'm just going to randomly pick one, and they make a module. So here's leptospirosis module. I don't know if this is a good example or a bad one. And they make an introduction slide. They talk about characteristics. They put pictures in. By this time, I really hope they've got referencing and citing down, which is a battle the first half of the semester. But they just make a module. And I've told them short chunks, but then they learn from each other. They read these modules. They then, trying to get to the end here, they get to the end and they have a discussion board where they say what they liked about the module, what they learned about the module. And here's the discussion. So which pages did you like? What images helped you understand it? What did you learn about the topic? Share any questions you have about it. And I make the people who created the module reply to people. Part of their points is replying to the comments on their discussion board for their module. So I just love this because it gets them involved in group work, which is huge for me. Collaboration is huge for me. We all collaborate in the world, and I think it's important. It makes them find good scientific information out there. And it makes them create some content. There is no way I can cover every single possible disease out there, and they all have their pet favorites, and they get really mad at me at the end of the semester if we haven't done theirs. So I tell them, if you don't see your topic showing up here, pick it for the group project, because that's where you can dive into it. So they really create some really cool modules, and I've definitely over the years pulled images, pulled videos, pulled content from those, and embedded it in other places and used it as examples for other things. So it's great for me. You know, I get updated on usually 7 to 9 different topics every semester I teach the class, which is fabulous. So I often get asked when I talk about this, well, how do you make pages that students can edit? So I just wanted to show you this. So if I'm putting this module together where I have kind of in the stuff and I want a new page, I make a new page. I'm just going to put page, create the page, give it a name. And now I've got the page. It's going to show up at the bottom. So let's open the page. And I want to edit it. And the only thing you need to do different on here, right here, giving the allowance to teachers and students to edit the page. So I do that, and then they have access to it. So the wiki one, the kind of add your own thoughts to it about in the news items, I had to click that so that they can get in there and add things. When I give them their modules, because I have to post the kind of skeleton of a module for them to build their group project, every page is editable by them. So that's the trick for that. You've got to change this option here and take it out of just teacher only. And then you would just save it and publish it. Gail.
So you actually create the module, so they cannot edit a module. They can only edit pages within the module.
Correct. So
then what, I mean, are you giving, these are, you know, here's the topic is one of these fancy disease names, and then you add how many pages to the module that have sort of sample headers that they will then go in and edit. Is that right?
Here's my sample template, and this one's kind of messy. I have them better organized now, but I keep this hidden.
Okay.
And when I have a group doing a project, I just duplicate this.
And
then in that duplicated one, I would edit out the topic and put in, oh, that's jumping around. I would edit it, and I would change the title to E. coli, and then I'd put introduction E. coli, content page 1 E. coli, content 2 E. coli, content 3 E. coli.
Got it. Okay, that's cool.
Now, a couple tricks to that I've learned over the years. I always put the semester. So like this semester, I put F23, because as pages get created, if you're importing, it just gets messy. So I always put a semester on there. Now here's another issue. They cannot, if they need another content page, they can't do that. If they want to change their titles, which I tell them to send me new titles, they can't do that. So they have to email me if they want a content page removed or added, and when they know what they want their real titles to be. And so when they email me, I just go in and make those edits for them. Yeah.
There was something in the chat from Melissa, and that's a great question. I'm glad to read those questions.
So I don't encourage them to meet via Zoom. I just encourage them to communicate in whatever way they would like to communicate. I leave it really open. If they want examples, I give them examples. So Zoom is definitely one thing I share, but a lot of them like things I don't even know about, like Discord and, you know, all these other. So as long as they're communicating, that's fine. I make them do an initial communication with me through a discussion board on Canvas, so I can see that they've all chimed in and they're all participating. If I see somebody hasn't done anything, I'll nudge them. But yeah, I keep that completely up to them and give them ideas. But
and I set up a collaboration document through Canvas so I can see who's going in the document too, and that's really helpful. So, and you know, and if someone gets out of the Discord chain or whatever it is, they can always go back to the collaboration document.
When you say collaboration document, is that a discussion topic? Is that a page that people can edit? What does that mean?
When you're in Canvas, if you go under, see, how do you do it? Under collaborations on the left menu bar.
On the navigation menu? Okay.
Then you can, so let's see. I can probably pull this up. Okay, so when you create the collaboration, you can put the group members' names in it.
Okay.
And you can, it creates a Google Doc.
Okay.
So as long as they're using their CRC emails, you can do that. So you can do it to the group. And you name the document. So can you see? No, not yet. Okay, so can you see now?
Yep.
So here is a Google Doc, or you can use apps, etc. But I always do a Google Doc, and I have the specific instructions, because in this case, in one case, they're using this, they're creating the quiz questions together. So I have the example of the quiz questions, and I have them put them there, and then of course not submit the whole document every week when they submit, because they do it weekly. And so I can see who's going in the document, and I can also see, because I get the updates on it when they're like correcting things and interacting, I can see who's not interacting through that document. And for the most part, as long as they're staying in the doc and not creating a new one, it doesn't create a problem. Sometimes they'll create a new one and then I'm not in it. And that means that if I'm not in it, some other people aren't. So I have to check in with them and say, hey, what's going on? But that's very rare.
I raised my hand because I wanted a clarification, and I will go in and look at both examples, which are terrific. It looked like in your first group, kind of low stakes, Julie, you assigned a group to a discussion where they talked about it so they had a discussion about the disease, the plague, whatever it was. Did you provide prompts for them? I can go look. You probably provided some prompts. Talk about this. Now I'm working through it. Now they have material with which they can make those pages, make that one page about that disease. Is that sort of that scaffolding process?
Exactly.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I have links to 2 very overarching scientific articles about neglected parasitic infections. So I have them read those, and I say, now based on, pull from these articles information on the one you were assigned. And
Okay.
share what you find, and share what you find interesting, and share what you still need to kind of dig deeper into. So yeah, I guide them.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you both for those amazing examples. Hanku, you have a question.
I have a question, like, is there any way, like, actually a student can actually create the page by themselves instead of like you create it and then let them allow to edit, instead of like they actually do create pages by
They
themselves?
can create pages in their group area,
Right.
but in the people area, if you make a group, they have the ability to make their
Right.
page, but nobody else sees that. So I have to make the pages in the shared module area for everyone to see it, unless Heather or Andy knows something different.
So
Well,
it's better that way. Okay.
Well, the cool thing though is that we have unlimited number of Google sites that we can create. So you could also have them make a Google website and put the information there, and then it would be visible, and then they can just share the link. But no, you have to make the pages if they're going to use them.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, I'm just asking the possibility. Thank you.
Creating the Google site, that is something that I have taught our 3-unit critical thinking and information literacy course, and that's what I have my students do for their final project, is to create a Google site on their topic. I did not include it as part of this presentation, and I haven't looked at those things in a few years because I haven't taught that class in a few years, but because we're a Google Apps college, everybody has access to that, and Google sites are very user-friendly and easy to create and navigate. So that is a way to have students be working together to create things. We wanted to open it up now to see if any of the participants are doing anything like this or creative in your classroom. If you could maybe share some of the things that you're doing. I'm happy to take notes, and this will be part of the stuff that we're sharing out with others. But is there anybody that wants to talk about some of the things they might be doing in their classes?
Don't be shy. Or maybe it's something you're dreaming of doing and just haven't implemented yet. We could totally brainstorm too.
I think that in my diversity in American drama class, I'm doing something almost like this. Meaning, for example, in the module on Asian American theater, I have a timeline of events in the history of Asian American theater. And I asked them to look at it from 1959 to I think it was created in 2009, and pick an event or anything on this timeline that interests you. Do a little research on it, share 2 to 3 really provocative, interesting things. Make sure you have pictures, right? And it's in a discussion. It's just in a discussion, but so it's very similar to doing. I can see how I can scaffold on that to now we're going to do small group. You're going to make a page so that everyone in the class can see this little bit of history, because I learned things all the time from these students, of how theater was used as a propaganda tool during the Vietnam War, and the pictures were amazing, So I'm already kind of doing that sort of thing, but I can see how it wants expansion to be something even more rewarding for the students, and more actually probably would be kind of more fit the definition of open pedagogy even, so that it's very exciting to see your examples, and I go, oh, I can see how I can fit sort of what I'm doing into that thing. So that's kind of exciting. Yeah.
There's another way to have students do something and share, but it's more individual though. I have them do e-portfolios, and they can share the link to the e-portfolio. So they build these pages in this e-portfolio as their mid and end semester assignments. And then they share the links, and everybody can look at those. And they talk about, like, these are the things I highlighted in my e-portfolio. So if you're interested, check it out.
That's cool.
It's not as public. You have to go through links, but
Yeah.
If there aren't other examples, let's do what Julie suggested and do a little brainstorming. We have a few more minutes, and then I'm gonna just quickly go through the guide that Julie shared earlier and show you some of the things that are available in that guide. And that's something I'll share with everyone after the workshop. But I know, like, Hanku teaches economics, and I know one of his challenges is finding open homework and coming up with problems. And just thinking about it, I feel like you could have your students be creating the homework, have them create these homework questions.
Yeah, I did this similar thing like she does. Because in economics we deal with a lot of data, so I asked them to collect some data or website they search for, and then I have those in the previous courses, so I use it for my activity question right now, and then using those website and data set, and so yeah, it was good in the long run. That's what I realized, and I got an idea from you too about like creating pages and then maybe let them plug in into the canvas. That's another way. I like that.
And I'm pretty sure even on when you are creating pages that students can edit, they can, it has all the functionality, so they can use the equation tool that's within
Right.
Canvas.
Right.
And I just feel like that might be a really interesting and fun way for them to be actively involved. And then if you can get their permission to then use those later on, you could do kind of what Heather talked about. You could have that be part of a comprehensive exam or use it in future semesters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know some of the Tamara teaches in the business department. I don't know some of the other disciplines. Is there, sometimes it's challenging because you'll see something and you might think, oh, well, that will work for English, or that'll work for, this biology class where you're talking about, things that are easily researched, but it doesn't really apply to me. And sometimes it's hard to kind of think outside of the box, but share with us some of your disciplines and we can just talk about them a little bit. Early childhood education. Melissa is from ECE. There's so much OER in ECE, which is fantastic. I know at CRC, we also have multitudes of certificates and degree pathways. And so it has been a challenge for us locally to do everything as OER. There just are some things that aren't OER. But anyone else want to do some brainstorming on ECE, things that you think might work for a classes in that series?
I was just in the OFAR, the Open for Anti-Racism cohort, the statewide thing, which is kind of like my mind is still blown from that experience. But there was an example of a project that someone did who worked in early childhood education. And she had her students write, I think that was definitely probably scaffolded a childhood memory or a favorite story or some kind of anecdote from their life. And then they created storybooks and she had them published. I don't know if that's exactly the kind of thing, but it was memorable, this project that this professor did with her students in early childhood education, which was, it's probably something that might be done fairly frequently among various educators, but they wrote little, very simple little children's books. I thought that was pretty cool. Oh, good. Okay. Good, Melissa. Yeah, it was just a beautiful, beautiful project. There might be a way to find or have access to some of that resource through, I would contact Greg Byler. He would know if you can find a way into where those examples of these great projects are. So anyway.
Melissa, are you here at CRC or are you at another campus?
I'm at CRC and
CRC. Okay. Yeah, so the Open for Anti-Racism was it's a cohort that of faculty from lots of different disciplines that are going through this fall semester they go through kind of all the training and the background, and then next semester they're all going to be working on individual projects to kind of put the things that they have learned into practice. And Greg Byer, who's our distance education coordinator, but he also teaches in the history department, he is kind of the lead on that, and he is super excited and passionate about it. And so as in the notes that I'm gonna send out, I'll put his name in there, and we can kind of follow up with him and see if he can share some of these things with us.
Do you know if that's something that will be offered again in the next fall semester?
It is a competitive process, and we did apply for it, and I kind of put a call out at the beginning of the semester and asked for people who were interested, and it was a pretty small group that expressed interest. You could only have a team of 6, and I'm told that once a college has a team that goes through, they likely won't accept an application from that college again, so they can try to get as many California community colleges to have that experience as possible. But my hope is that Greg and the others will be willing to share some of the things that they've learned, so that all of us can benefit from everything that they've experienced. We're also, I will let you know, at CRC, we're in the process of, we have received more funds from the Chancellor's office to continue our zero textbook cost work. All the campuses have received more funds. It's just how we're going to distribute them is different at each college. But at CRC, we are going to do a different iteration of, a few years ago, we had the OER award program. Now it's going to be called the OER conversion grant. It'll be attached to a course as opposed to asking you to do everything all at once. And that'll be rolling out sometime in the spring, and it will be an opportunity to, again, get compensation to convert your class. The difference in this one is that if you're converting to zero textbook costs, you have to be using OER. You can't use, it can't be a situation where we might buy the textbook for one class in the series. This is your only, you apply for a specific course and you convert that class by using OER. And some faculty have already switched their textbook, but maybe they really need open homework or other things. So there will be options to do other things besides just working on the textbook. And those details will be released sometime in the spring. So there is more work coming, an opportunity. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and first let me put a link to this. I will again share this out in the email that I send, but this is a guide that we created for the project. So the homepage just kind of has some definitions, and it does have some examples of different things that people have done in different disciplines. But I tried to gather a whole bunch of information. So we found books and chapters that talk specifically about open pedagogy. There are websites and blogs that have lots of great things. This open pedagogy notebook had some beautiful examples on it from lots of different disciplines. And this, I think, sort of morphed into this website, the Open Pedagogy Portal, because it became too much to manage for these folks. So they started something else. And these are tiles. So if you just do this little arrow, there's lots of resources here. I grabbed a whole bunch of recordings of different, a lot of these were either part of a conference or were a webinar connected with a specific organization. Most of them are offered under Creative Commons licenses. So that means you kind of have free range on viewing and duplicating things. And then the sample assignments is the page that Julie shared earlier. And so Heather's assignments are here, Julie's assignments are here, and their assignments, it's not the Canvas pages, but it's all the information from their Canvas pages in a Google document. And then there's others. Kelsey Ford is a writing and literature instructor at CRC. She provided some as well. And there's some really beautiful examples in here of some things that people are doing really across the country. Then there were other resources that didn't really fit into some of the other categories, but I thought were interesting. Some of them are presentations, some of them are just resource lists. And then I included some research on the effectiveness of open pedagogy. And these are all available for free online, and there's links to everything in there. So this is up on the library's website now. You have access to it, and it's and if you have things that you want me to add to it, I'm happy to do that. You can just send me links and I'm happy to add more information onto that page and keep it growing. And then the recording from this, let me share my screen one more time, from tonight will eventually go up on the ZTC at CRC website. It'll be in the professional development area, and it's under recorded workshops. So if you are not familiar with this website, this is everything that we've created for this project gets put on this website somewhere. And we did a whole bunch of workshops when we first started the OER award program, and they were all recorded and they're all available in here, and there's additional information. And then I'll just add this one towards the bottom probably. And let me get back to the homepage and I'll put this link into chat as well.